Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is Friday, January 2nd, 2026. What a blessing to be here with all of you as we have been for almost 6 years, Torah every single weekday morning, finding each other from across the world for each broadcast, including this one. Thank you, Penny. 1461. To find each other and say good morning. Lydia, nice to see you. Adele and Susie, Jonathan, Boker Tov friends. Hi, Ashley. Hope that you are well. Getting ready for Shabbos. Hope that you are feeling good, staying warm. It's cold out, at least here in New York. Good morning, Marilyn and Amy, David, Boker Tov. Happy New Year to you too, my friend. Let's say hi to a few more friends, then we'll sing a bracha and learn some Torah. Cynthia, good to see you too. Hi. Okay. Pick up the guitar, sing a blessing, get this day started. Good morning to Sandy and Lisa, Boker Tov friends. Oh, Lydia, your mother would have been 98 today. Bless her memory. Happy birthday to your mother. Lisa, your mother passed on Sunday. You're in Shiva now. We are with you, my friend. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that you are receiving comfort all around you. We are proud to be a community, too, that can offer you comfort. May your mother's memory be for a blessing. Today's Torah is in her memory. Marcia, nice to see you. Debbie, hi. Stanley, nice to see you, too. Diane, happy birthday. Nice to see you. Today's Torah is also celebrating you. Gail and Amy, Boker Tov. Monday is your 73rd birthday, Amy. Happy early birthday. Jerry and Marcia, Minna, Boker Tov. Lisa, just so you know, you're receiving comfort on Instagram too, even if you can't see it yourself. Judy, good to see you. Hi, Jack. Hi, Tara. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Arlene. Amber, let's take a breath. Sing a blessing. Ya la 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 la, la 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 la, today ya la 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 la, ay ya la la la. David sending you prayers for healing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah, la'asot b'divrei Torah, hafok ba ve'hafok ba, la'asot b'divrei Torah. Today I today I So good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. Lisa, just to repeat, you're getting a lot of love from everybody on Instagram and on Facebook. And Diane, I see you just joined. Happy birthday from a whole lot of people. I'm not sure you can see the comments based on when you joined. It's the first Shabbat of 2026, friends. And with the Shabbat, we close the book of Genesis. Very, very powerful. To see the end of the family story, which Genesis represents, and the beginning of the national story, which is what Shemot, Exodus, begins. That pivot point is really, really powerful to point out, as we have a few times this week. But let me return just to the beginning of this week's Parsha. And I'm going to base a lot of my thinking this morning on Rabbi Shimon Felix, a comment that he made. Very powerful one. If you ever look in a Torah scroll, you can see sometimes that there are gaps between words in a line, and sometimes openings on the edges, on the margins of a column. Those are actually designed and handed down from scribe to scribe. When there's an opening to the margin, it's called ptucha, literally open. And when it's enclosed, it's called stuma, enclosed. Stuma also means shut. And one of the oddities of this week's Parsha, Parshat Vayechi, which Rashi, the ancient commentator, notes, is that it's a stuma. Between last week, Vayigash, and this week, Vayechi, there actually is not a break in the text. And that absence of a break is noteworthy. Every other Torah portion begins at least with a visible pause. It's like if you hit tab on a keyboard, the text moves and puts a break there, which would make your eye notice that something new is happening, either a new paragraph or something, but there's no break between last week and this week. And what Rashi says here is interesting. Rashi says, why is this Sedra, this Torah portion, totally closed, stuma? Because it begins with an account of the death of Jacob. And as soon as our ancestor Jacob departed this life, the hearts and the eyes of Israel were closed. The literal words here are, their eyes became dim and their hearts troubled because of the misery of the bondage which they then began to impose upon them. And we know that actually there was a significant amount of time between the death of Jacob and the beginning of the oppression of our ancestors. But Rashi is conflating those two, perhaps because Rashi himself experienced the Crusades happening in the world and was experiencing his own stuma moment, an enclosed, a shutness. Another reason Rashi offers, and this is a quote from Breshit Rabbah, an ancient commentary, Jacob wished to reveal to his children the date of the end of days, when the exile would end. But the vision was stuma, was closed from him, was hidden. All of this is interesting, and that's one way of reflecting on why the text might be a visual cue to a bigger idea. What was closed? Our hearts were closed. The future seemed closed. And Rabbi Shimon Felix quotes Ramban, the mystic commentator Nachmanides, who shares in his introduction to the Torah it's not common, it's a mystical idea that you might have heard of, that the Torah was written black fire on white fire. Black meaning the text, white meaning the context. And this is a way that the mystics describe there having been a Torah before there was a reality. The Torah itself exists for longer than existence. It's a very complicated and beautiful idea worth considering. But what Rabbi Felix does with this mystical idea, applied to what Nachmanides says about the absence of the space between last week and this week, is that with Jacob's death, the context, the white fire upon which tradition is written, is lost. Now that's a very interesting concept. Let me expand upon it for a moment. Exile, which is the understanding of being outside of our ancestral homeland. Today, Medinat Israel, said then Eretz Israel. The children of Jacob were no longer in their home. Jacob didn't want to leave his home, this promised land that God had covenanted to the family. But Jacob went because that's where he needed to go. God said, go and I will bring your family back one day. Jacob brings the context of the ancestral home, the context of our holiness, into exile with him. And that represents, according to Rabbi Felix, the white fire upon which tradition can be written. But once he dies, once Jacob, who holds and embodies this white fire, the context for our holiness, once he dies, that's lost. And there's no more, remember in the visual text, no more space upon which to write this. Something is shut. And it is our job in our world, where sometimes it doesn't seem like there's much white fire and openness and invitation for our traditional life, for our specific kind of fire. It is important for us to open up those spaces so that there can be more written. Listen to the way Rabbi Felix writes this. He first addresses the text and then becomes autobiographical a little bit. He first says, when they looked around them, Jacob's children in Egypt, what they saw was an ancient culture, an alien setting, which they had to close their eyes to shut out in order to remain faithful to their inner vision. When they let themselves feel what they felt was foreign, not their own, and ultimately threatening. So they stopped themselves from feeling in order to remain true to their inner feelings. Jacob, therefore, could see no future in Egypt for his children, as their future was in fact not really there, but elsewhere, in an interior landscape to which they were forced to retreat. That white fire is deep within. It's within us, no matter where we are. Rabbi Felix writes, personally, I'm reminded of my own grandfather, who for me also served as a kind of Jewish context in a non-Jewish American setting, calling him Zaidi, that's Yiddish for grandfather, seeing him reading the Yiddish newspaper, studying the weekly Torah portion, going with him to the small shul he prayed in, created a backdrop for me when I was growing up that placed me somewhere other than my immediate American surroundings. He served as a kind of white fire, a setting for the black fire of the words I studied in my Jewish day school, words which I think would have felt totally unrelated to the life I was living were it not for Zaidi's presence. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful for us to consider in a moment, and Lisa, I'm thinking of you, in a moment of loss, what it is to find within ourselves the white fire upon which to write with the black fire of our specific experience. These are complicated ways of saying something that is also quite complicated to feel. There are times where the context where we find ourselves physically, where we are in life, and where we are in time, it is complicated sometimes to find the space for spiritual living, especially when the surrounding world can feel so callous, when the world threatens to shut our hearts down. Well, we have entered a new year, friends, and it is our job to push the white fire, a context upon which to write the details of holy living, into the world, not to hurt the world, not to attack the world, but to be present with a full interior life. Sometimes, especially with headlines, we need to shut our eyes just a little bit so that we can remember the divinity within us and what is possible in life, because headlines will not be the place to remind us of that. In fact, a lot of the world right now seems to be in a political place, a social place, an emotional place, where we would not do well if we had our eyes open all the time, if we let all of that in. It would dampen our spirits. But remember, Torah is older than existence itself. Black fire on white fire. If I could dig deep just for a moment and share Susan with you, having gone through some of what you're describing, myself, having gone through divorce and starting life again, channeling all of these lessons, it's hard to remember the capacity, the capaciousness, the expansiveness of our own hearts sometimes. But in moments of real life, which include, I'm so sorry, this, for you, and for a lot of us, we've been through this, we have to remember that there is an infinite expanse within. And upon that infinite expanse, the white fire, we can write the story of our lives even more passionately. It doesn't feel like there's space. It's a constriction of a kind. But redemption is a word that describes inner freedom. It's not simple. It's not simple. It's a complicated feeling, and it does take time. But I would bless all of us to hear in whatever way we possibly can that this world is more than it seems. Sometimes we need to close our eyes to see that white fire. But our hands are the hands that will compose the next chapter of history for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and for the world. There is enough light. It's right here in each of us. Our ancestor Jacob knew that we would have to close our eyes in order to see the possibilities of the future, to build home wherever we are. We can do that. We do that. It's not simple, but we are powerful enough to do it. We are, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel famously wrote, images of God, a fraction of God's infinite power at our disposal. Infinite power. A fraction of that is still pretty infinite. That's what each of us has. May we be blessed as we go through Parshat Vayechi, ending one chapter of our family's story, to close the book with the words Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and together we will be even stronger. Transitioning to a new chapter, the book of Exodus, next week, knowing that there is fire within, and it is warm. It is vivifying. It is enlightening. It brings us back to life. Let's go into Shabbos, friends, full-hearted. Let's send our hearts to the east and sing. Kol hod b'leva pnima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulefatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo avda tikvateinu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון Virushalayim. Am Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom, friends. See you on Monday.